Hello y'all. So yesterday, Sarah Wandra, the only person so far arrested in connection with the abduction and death of missing Fruitland 5-year-old Michael Vaughan. She had a status conference yesterday after spending 4 months in the care of psychological services because she was unfit to stand trial and understand her court proceedings. Because of incompetency, everything was put on hold. Yesterday, though, the status conference gave some mind-blowing news that the case against Sarah Wondra had been dismissed. The news was just breaking on Twitter when I made a YouTube short going, "What's going on, guys? What's going on?" And this comment here that was left on that YouTube short, I think, speaks for a lot of people. This is freaking outrageous, sickening. Why? Does this little boy, Michael Vaughan, aka Monkey, not matter? Boy, this sets an example for all criminals out there, doesn't it? That sweet little innocent boy. This is a shame, a disgrace. Do we know or not if this Sarah could have been even further involved? Whether yes or no, it is not enough to report a death, a killing, a body, a little boy's body. My God, what is going on? I'm shocked and saddened. Bless his family. I'm so sorry for the loss of your little boy, Monkey. I'm sad and infuriated that they let this monster go. Sending love to the family. Rest in peace, Monkey. Things are not as bad as they initially seemed. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. Let's go.
As you know, from the time Michael went missing, this has been an all-hands-on-deck investigation, and it remains very active and an ongoing investigation. You can't take one of our most precious citizens from us and ever expect us to stop. During the course of this investigation to date, we received credible information that the remains of Michael Vaughan could be found in the backyard at 1102 Red Wing Street in Fruitland. As a result, the Fruitland Police Department obtained a search warrant for the residence along with the front and backyards. That search warrant was served on November 11th. It was a Friday. We served that late in the evening. Upon entry, officers encountered Sarah Wandra, one of the known occupants of the home, and Sarah was subsequently arrested based on probable cause that she had knowledge of Michael's death and failed to report that death to law enforcement. The following day, the Fruitland Police Department, joined by the Idaho State Police, the Idaho Mountain Search and Rescue, the Fruitland Fire Department, and the Fruitland Public Works Department began a very methodical excavation of the backyard of the Wandra's home. During that excavation process, the Idaho Mountain Search and Rescue, Mountain States detection dogs deployed multiple certified human remains detection dogs on the property, all of them alerting to the presence of human remains. Ground-penetrating radar was also used and deployed, detecting anomalies in the backyard. We completed the excavation of the entire backyard and removed over 250 yards of dirt. Prior to backfilling the yard, the dirt was meticulously sifted for any potential human remains. We did not find Michael's remains. Although the remains of Michael Vaughan were not recovered, we strongly believe, based on evidence, that Michael was abducted and is deceased, and that his remains were buried and later moved from the property. As of today, the whereabouts of his remains are unknown. However, the investigation is active, fluid, and ongoing. Once the excavation was complete, we conducted a thorough search of the Wandra's residence. The search was productive, and additional investigative evidence was recovered and is currently being processed.
So that was Fruitland PD Chief J.D. Huff speaking in December after that painstaking search that they did of 1102 Red Wing Street, which is just half a mile away from Michael's home. We sat with bated breath waiting for news during that search that seemed to go on forever. But despite cadaver dogs alerting to that property, they didn't find any evidence of Michael's remains. So it was basically on the word of the cadaver dogs that they assumed that Michael's remains had been there at one point and then moved. I think that's a very valid theory to have. JD Huff said that they found other evidence in the house. We don't know what the evidence was. So the state of the case was that it was ongoing. 3 other suspects, as well as Sarah, were spoken about by JD Huff. These were Sarah's husband, Stacey Wondra, who was in jail at the time on unrelated charges, and 2 other people who were living at the house, strongly connected to the Wandras, at the time that Michael disappeared on July 27th, 2021. They were Brandon Shirtliff and Adrian Lucian, but to this date, no other arrests have been made. So the news that Sarah's case was dismissed came as a shock. But things are not as bad as they seem, so let's talk about this. This is the Idaho Statesman. The lone charge against an Idaho woman accused of being involved in the case of Michael Vaughan, who went missing nearly 2 years ago, was dismissed Monday morning. She now faces new charges, but not for anything related to Michael's disappearance. So she's still in jail on unrelated charges. She's not going anywhere, so that's the first bit of good news. She's not just been released. Sarah Wandra, 35, of Fruitland, was arrested in November and charged with failure to report a death. Her arrest came as police excavated the backyard of the home she shared with her husband, roughly half a mile from the Vaughan family home. So the excavation did not turn up Michael's remains, but authorities said they believed he was buried there at one point and then moved. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. At the request of the state, so it's the state's motion to dismiss, not the defence's, so there's a very good reason for them doing this. At the request of the state, Wandra's case was dropped without prejudice by and for the reason that based on evidence in the state's possession, State versus Aikens 164 Idaho 74 2018 may be a defence. The State v Aikens case cited in court involved a body wrapped in a tarp and a shower curtain being found in a lake. The woman was charged with failure to notify authorities of a death, but the Idaho Supreme Court ruled that the state's prosecution of that charge would violate her Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination. So that went to Idaho Supreme Court, and the state are using that case as their rationale for dismissing the case against Sarah Wandra at the moment. But when it says without prejudice, it means that they could bring charges back at any time. So to me, this is them saying we don't have strong enough evidence at the moment to carry on with this case, because what they don't want is that case to get all the way to trial and a jury find her not guilty because of lack of evidence. So it's very similar to the Barry Morphew case. His murder charges for the murder of his wife, Suzanne Morphew, were dismissed. That case went far further through the court system than Sarah Wandra's has. But his case was dismissed without prejudice. And it just means not enough evidence at the moment, not strong enough evidence at the moment. But don't you worry, we could bring charges back at any time. And as Sarah is still detained, she's not going anywhere fast. Payette County Prosecutor Mike Duke and Wandra's defence attorney Brett Schiller did not immediately return the Idaho Statesman's request for comment on Monday. These are the charges that she's being held for. Wandra was charged on March 23rd with 3 felonies in a separate case: aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, possession of a controlled substance and destruction, and alteration or concealment of evidence. Court documents show that on April 13th, 2022, Wandra allegedly pointed a gun at the head of a guest who was staying with her and then brought the gun in a purse to her parents' house. Wandra admitted to bringing the gun there because she knew she was not supposed to be in possession of a firearm, according to the affidavit. When police responded to a 911 call about the incident, They found that she unlawfully possessed acetaminophen and hydrocodone, commonly sold under the brand name of Vicodin. Sarah later admitted to having a previous prescription that was no longer valid, and she kept the pills. Benjamin K., Fruitland police officer, wrote in the affidavit. So those are the charges she's being held on. If you remember back to November, and we looked at Sarah Wandra's record, she'd been arrested previously, let go. I think she was out on bond, if I remember right, but I'd have to go back and check. But why was Sarah Wandra arrested in the Michael Vaughan case? According to the probable cause affidavit that was later sealed, police served a search warrant on the Wandra home on November 11th last year, based on information they received from Wandra's husband Stacey. It remains unclear when or why police spoke with Stacey Wandra, or what he told them that prompted the excavation. So we don't know those details, because police have offered few details on what they found. In December, they said cadaver dogs used in the excavation had alerted to the presence of human remains, and then J.D. Huff told reporters in a press conference that police strongly believe, based on the evidence, that Michael was abducted and is deceased, and his remains were buried and later moved from a property. So we know that they've been working behind the scenes. They've been to Brandon Shirtliff's mother's house, and they've done excavations there. But at the current time, Michael's remains are still out there somewhere. This is just heartbreaking for his family. Michael's mother, Brandy, was in court yesterday, and just the look on her face, she was outside the court crying, and just absolutely awful. When will the nightmare end for them? I have no words to how that family must be feeling. In January, in a Facebook post, Fruitland PD's most recent update, officials said only that they found several pieces of evidence that were sent to a private lab for DNA analysis. And we know that DNA has come back, but we don't know whether that was Michael's DNA or some other DNA. We don't know. We don't know about that yet. Sarah Wandra was at the residence when police arrived. According to the affidavit, she told an officer that God told her Stacey had killed Michael and buried the boy in a neighbour's yard. She later backtracked, saying Stacey did not hurt the boy, but had buried him in the Wandra's backyard, a court document said. So they excavated a neighbour's backyard as well and found nothing. Wandra also told police that someone identified in the affidavit only as Adrian had been the one that had done it, and he was scared to tell anybody. Police later announced that they were looking for Adrian Lucien of Toledo, Ohio, and Brandon Shirtliff of Kuna, saying they believed the men had first-hand knowledge of Michael's abduction. Neither man had been charged in the case, nor has Stacey Wandra. Soon after her arrest, Wandra was declared mentally unfit to proceed. As we know, her competency has since been restored. So what does all of that mean? All right, so this is KTVB. They say very much the same. In a status hearing for Wandra 35, Judge Brian Lee also vacated a preliminary hearing that had been scheduled for Tuesday, and the case is now listed as closed in Idaho court records. But again, this is dismissed without prejudice. Brandy has given a statement. The mother of missing Fruitland boy Michael Vaughan told KTVB that she's disheartened and upset that the only person who has been charged in her son's disappearance so far were dismissed on Monday. However, she said she's confident in law enforcement investigating the case. I know police are steadfast in that ongoing investigation and in bringing justice for Michael. She said she can't comment on why the prosecutor's office asked for the case to be dismissed, but she does say one thing to anyone with any involvement in Vaughan's disappearance: charges are forthcoming. She asked for the public to keep Michael's beautiful face out there because we need answers and tips and information from people who aren't talking. And anybody with any tips is asked to call 208 452 3110, and the email is findmichael@fruitland.org, or contact Crime Stoppers at 208 343 COPS, or on the web at 343cops.com. But as we know, Sarah Wandra still faces charges of aggravated assault, destruction of evidence, and possession of a controlled substance in connection with an April 13th, 2022 incident. Fruitland Police Department said that the dismissal in Sarah's case would not change the course of the investigation into the disappearance of Michael. So the situation is that the investigation is ongoing, but that charges could well come against the 4 people, including Sarah Wandra, who they believe have information about what happened to Michael. We know that the cops did make contact with Shirtliff and Lucian, but there's possibly more, even more people involved, but they're not talking. This is the thing. That's why tips are so important in this case still. You know, you do it anonymously to Crime Stoppers at 208-343-COPS, and it could be that little piece of information that the police need to crack this case wide open. Let's keep the faith. I think the police are on the right track, but they have to have a strong enough case. What we don't want is that case to go to trial and then a jury find them not guilty because of double jeopardy. We want justice for Michael, and sometimes that justice process can be a very long and arduous one. So keep the faith and let's just keep going. All right, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you very soon in the next video.